Sharon, good morning.
Good morning, Neil. How are you?
And I'm good. And of course, we know of the devastating consequences regarding our nursing homes in the last 11 months. And unfortunately, your dad passed away in November, wasn't that right?
That's right, yeah. The 14th of November he passed away, yeah.
And why do you have so many unanswered questions?
Well, Neil, it was the end of life treatment that he got. Like, it really wasn't, how can I say, like, he was tested positive on a Thursday, and then we rang all weekend, the nursing home, and they told us that he was grand, he had no symptoms, he was asymptomatic. And then on the Tuesday, they told us that he was after getting a symptom, he was tired. And then on Wednesday, the clinical nurse rang me just to tell me that he was after getting a bit weak, and that he wasn't eating or drinking. So we said grand, and then the GP, I was waiting for the GP to ring me back, and the GP rang me back on Wednesday afternoon, and she told me that he was in no immediate danger and that his chest was clear. But still, the clinical nurse was after telling me on Wednesday morning that his chest wasn't clear.
And were you hearing all of these conversations by phone and things like that?
Yes, because we couldn't go in because the visiting was suspended because they had COVID.
I think maybe your initial contact with me was following John's interview regarding his mother who passed away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was, yeah.
Okay.
And I just feel that I need to get it out there the way we were treated as well.
So then your dad's condition worsened?
It worsened, yeah. And then on Wednesday night, the head nurse rang me from her own house at 10 o'clock to tell me to come out, that they didn't think he'd last the night. So I went out, had to go into a COVID ward and get the PPE gear on and whatever. And when I went into him, he was struggling. He was very bad and he had oxygen. But the oxygen mask wasn't great and it was kind of down a bit out of his nose. So she pushed it up and he wasn't drinking. And I did ask about a drip and I was told that there was no way he could go on a drip. I asked about putting him to hospital and they told me no, that they couldn't, because over being a COVID patient, he'd have to go through the emergency department, which I couldn't understand. Then Thursday morning they rang me to say that he was after having a bowl of porridge, that he made it through the night and he was after having a bowl of porridge and that he was more alert. And I asked again about a drip and they said no, because it would flood his lungs.
Okay. Well, I have nothing to say in that regard, not having a medical background,
you know. Yeah, and then Thursday he slept for the afternoon and whatever, and they rang so that there could be 2 more visitors go out on Friday. So my brother and sister went individually. Now we were only left 10 minutes each because of being COVID.
Well, John, whose mother passed away, was in for 5 minutes.
Yeah, we were 10. That's what we got, was 10.
Right.
And he wasn't. They said he was awake on the Friday, and then Friday night they rang me to say that he was just after getting a bit weak. But in the meantime, they told me that if his pulse weakened, that they would get in contact with one of us to sit with him while he'd pass. So we said grand, but then the GP was after telling me that there was 5 critical on the Monday, which we were never told, and he was one of the 5 critical on the Monday beforehand, which we were never told. The lack of communication wasn't great between the GP and the nursing home. So on Friday night, on Saturday morning at 7:01, I got a call to say, could I come to the nursing home? So I said grand. I went. I rang my mum, I rang my brother, and I rang my sister, got out there, and I was like, where the nursing home is and where I'm living, it's only 10 minutes out the road, was out there anyway. I couldn't get in because they couldn't find. I rang first when I was outside to say that I'm outside the door, and they came to the emergency door. They couldn't find the key to leave me in the emergency door. Then they got me in the emergency door, and I went down and got in the PPE gear and went into my dad's room to discover myself that my dad was after passing. Now, they never told me that he was after passing. And then I just asked the nurse, I said, is my dad after passing? And she said, oh, yes. She said, his pulse was weak at 6:40 and he passed at 6:50.
Do you believe you should have been told that in advance?
Yes.
And now, if your dad and mum were married 60 years, he must have been in his 80s, was he?
He was 87, yeah.
Okay.
He was 87,
and
yeah.
Did your mum get any visit or anything like that?
No, my mum didn't get no visit. My mum had to say her goodbyes on the Saturday morning through the window. My brother had to lift her up and say goodbye to him through the window.
He physically lifted her up?
Yeah, because he was so far down in the bed because he was lying flat after passing away. He was lying flat and she couldn't see properly, so he physically had to lift her up to say goodbye to him.
Did she know she was saying goodbye?
No, they didn't know. See, so I had to break the news then because it was dark, and I pulled the curtain. My brother knocked at the window, and I pulled the curtains back, and I just said, "He's gone." And then my brother went to the cars to tell the rest of them because we all couldn't come around the window. And my brother.
So when your mother got to visit through the window and your brother held her up, her husband had died.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And it was so heartbreaking.
So she saw him dead.
Yeah.
And she knew that he was dead through the window.
She did, because my brother was after going down to tell my sister. And
but that must have been, I can't imagine how heartbreaking that must have been for her.
Heartbreaking. It was absolutely heartbreaking. And I just think myself that there's so many questions left unanswered. They're after watching RT Investigates last week with Tala Hospital, my dad could have gone to hospital. And if he hadn't made it in hospital, fair enough. But at least we tried, and I did try everything to get him in there. And they just kept refusing me.
Well, you're questioning the duty of care. I don't know, is there a selection process as to who gets to go to hospital and who doesn't from nursing homes? Is there?
I don't know. But then Neil, looking back there, when Heckler went into the nursing home in County Kerry, they put the most sick into hospital, and the residents that weren't tested positive, they moved them out of there. This nursing home had so many deaths and so many positive cases. There was over half the staff that was out sick that tested positive. They had agency staff in that didn't know where the nursing home was, how to get into the nursing home. So
there are a number of nursing homes then where over half the residents and over half the staff were testing positive. Yeah.
They had one section of that nursing home just cornered off completely. Their day room was just all PPE gear. So there was, and
why couldn't you? Yeah, there was no time at all that your mum could have gone in. No.
He was after passing. At 6:40 when the pulse weakened. We really think as a family that we should have got a call to say to come.
But the call that you did get was a call. The call that you got was a call after he had died.
Yes. And then it was last.
And you had to ask the nurse then. Actually, has he died?
Yes, I had to ask the nurse had he died, and she said yes, because when I went in, the oxygen bottle was gone, and he was just lying flat in the bed with his mouth and his eyes open. And
you looked at him and said, is he dead?
Yeah, and I looked at him and I just said, is he dead? And she said, oh yes. She said, he passed at 6:50. And this was...
But sure, that's not the way to... That isn't the way to handle it.
No. And then I asked them for a watch and a rosary bead to be kept with him, and it wasn't kept, and then they went missing, and then we got it eventually. But we did ask questions and we just got nowhere. All we got was apologies. I rang the GP and I asked the GP why wasn't he let go, why wasn't he put on the drip, and then she told me that they had an incident there 2 or 3 years ago where someone was put on a drip and it only prolonged their life for 3 weeks, and then they got bed sores and it wasn't really a suitable way to go. But my dad was, from Wednesday we sent till Saturday morning till he passed without anything at all, without any liquid, anything at all in his body.
So you're going to continue to look for answers. I can request a statement, but I know what the answer will be. They don't talk about, because of privacy issues, they won't discuss any details with a third party. But I can't get it out of my head, though, your mother being lifted up by your son to look in at her dead husband. It's just tragic.
Yeah, and my own children, they're 28 and 26, and my nephew's 26 as well. And he was, they all had to say goodbye through the window. My brother had to say goodbye through the window. My mum they were 6 years married on the 29th of October. And that's the way she got to say her goodbyes. And then we had to have a closed coffin over the COVID, you see, so...
Poor woman.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking. And I know there's other families out there that's going through the same, but we just need so many questions to be answered to know. The hospitals weren't, I don't know, we were in the middle of level 5, but they weren't as stretched as what they were in January.
Well, I don't know how chaotic it is inside them, particularly. We did contact that nursing home actually, and they are not giving a statement. We asked for one yesterday. Okay, but listen, continue to ask for clarifications and questions.
Oh, definitely. Right. We're after getting a bit of advice on it as well.
Yeah, okay.
And after watching that programme last week, RT Investigates, there was people that was older and sicker, and that they came out the other way, the other side of it.
Were moved to hospital is what you're saying. They were moved, yeah. Well, that should be the question that you should keep on asking as to why your dad wasn't. But listen, Sharon, thank you so much, and I'm so sorry to hear of your loss.
No, but Neil, thanks very much for listening to me.